it is a cliche when people say, you know, if you're struggling, just help other people. And when you help other people, you'll find that you're not really struggling that much anymore, you know, whether that's struggling emotionally or struggling financially or whatever it is that you're dealing with. If you turn that around and say, well, how can I stop worrying about me and how can I start helping other people? That can only move in a positive direction. So that's what we tried to do here. It wasn't, oh, poor us, this situation we're in. Yeah, of course, there's those moments, and you can't turn your back on the reality of what is happening from a business perspective. But we have people that we're here to serve. We have people that we're responsible for. We have people who count on us. So what can we do to take care of them under this situation?
Problems are what? Problems are profits!
Welcome to another episode of the Problems or Profits podcast. My name is Rebecca Lynn Matheson, and I'm joined by my co-host, Matt McKeever, and special guest, Tommy Caldwell. Tommy Caldwell and I actually do have a bit of history here. I worked for Hybrid Fitness, which is the gym that he owns here in London, Ontario for many years. And Tommy has built this business from the ground up. He's also an athlete, podcast host, author, and fitness mentor, father, and more. So really excited for you guys to learn a little bit more about Tommy and really dive into his entrepreneurial journey. So Matt, if you want to actually jump in here and talk a little bit about what Problems or Profits really means.
Absolutely. So Problems and Profits is really a life philosophy. It's a concept. It's the idea of focusing on what you're in control of, right? You may not be able to control what problem or obstacle gets set in your way, but you can control how you react to it. And so are you just going to see the problem, or are you going to try and find the opportunity within it? And I imagine as we get into Tommy's situation, we'll find lots of challenges that have occurred in your business over the last 2 years.
Of course. Yeah. It's, I mean, the whole way along, but the last 2 years, I think everyone could use a little bit more of that stoic philosophy with approaching the latest events.
Absolutely. Well, Tommy, we'll get into just a few warm-up questions and then we'll just jump into some open dialogue here. But first warm-up question is, what is the most expensive thing you've ever broken?
Man, I don't know. I don't buy a lot of expensive things. To tell you the truth, I'm pretty simple that way. Easy answers would be just buying vehicles that, you know, actually, here's something. Probably not the answer you're looking for, but I did embarrassingly drove my F-150 over a giant snowbank that was way bigger than I thought it was and completely dented the one side of my truck. So that's probably the most expensive thing I've essentially ruined. And that was just this past winter. So it was somewhat recent. Yeah, so that, I suppose. I'm sure there's more things, but not that I can think of top of mind.
Gotcha. And so warm-up question number 2 is $1 million in 24 hours. What would you do with it? And it's kind of one of those, you know, use it or lose it situations.
Yeah, I think that would be an island adventure. So just taking a gang of people, private jet, hit up the island, do whatever we want there. I think everyone's got that escape fantasy of, you know, the Fijian island, middle of nowhere, luxury, all of that. I think the only way to spend that money is with a once in a lifetime experience for you and people you care about.
Love that. Now, final warm-up question here, Tommy, is why are you?
Good question. I would say the thing that probably stands out right now as, you know, potentially somewhat unique to my character is I'm not afraid to put my head on the chopping block. And that sort of mentality and attitude has only gotten stronger over the past couple of years. But I think there's a lack of leadership and a lack of conviction in the average person, in business, out of business. It's a lot easier just to say what the status quo is saying and do what the status quo is doing and keep yourself protected and safe from, you know, ruffling feathers and having an opposing point of view. And if there's one thing, because, you know, there's lots of people in fitness, there's lots of people that tell people how to work out and how to eat. And I think that sort of expertise in the age of information is a dime a dozen. So what might be unique to me is the ability to tell the truth all the time. Truth being just how I honestly feel about a certain situation. So perhaps that.
Yeah, really appreciate you sharing that, and look forward to kind of jumping into some of the challenges that you've likely experienced over the last 2 years. But before we do that, do you mind maybe just giving us a recap on your entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. So I opened up my first gym in 2008, and that gym was called Hybrid Training. You'd see one of the original signs back here. That was on the outside of one of my first buildings, and I primarily worked with athletes at that time. So I was in college. I was taking the physiotherapy route, and then when I started to do placements, clinical placements, I quickly realized that was not going to be the environment for me. So I actually started working with athletes, both on my own as well as with a small athletic development facility locally here, just as I was trying to figure out what I was actually going to do with my life at that time, since the thing I originally thought I was going to do clearly wasn't going to work out for me. And then that just sort of snowballed into a passion and a business in a very organic way, because that would have been around 2006, 2007. And I didn't know there was the opportunity for a future in fitness, whether it was working with athletes or everyday people. I didn't think there was a very secure future there. So I was just doing it as, this is the thing that I'm capable of doing, that I'm good at doing, that I like to do, and I'll do it while I figure out what I'm going to do next. And then that turned into me opening up my first facility. And that was a 4,000 to 5,000 square foot facility, not in the nicest place in the city. And then as it grew, I moved to a bigger space, and then that space grew, and I moved to a bigger space. And 5 spaces later, we're now in the 20,000 square foot facility we're at today, which, with the events that have happened the past 2 years, more space is not a better place to be right now. And maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. But I didn't really have a lot of specific intent getting into the business that I'm in. It just sort of happened. And it almost turned into something that I couldn't not do anymore. I got so much joy and satisfaction in what I was doing with coaching people and working in fitness, both my own journey at the time of exploring that part of myself and that part of the world, and helping other people explore that part of themselves and their own capabilities. It became such a joy that I probably would have kept doing it, even if the future didn't turn into something as tangible as it did, just because I liked doing it so much. It's one of those things where, someone says, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do? I would do something like this. I would do something like helping people and guiding them and aiding them in taking control of their health, empowering themselves, because I think it's fundamental to everything else that you want to get out of life. If you don't have that for yourself, you don't really have much of anything at all. So, so that's what brings me to where I am today as far as the gym business goes.
Yeah, definitely appreciate the context there, Tommy. And just to give people a little bit more of a background, can you tell us a little bit as well, just about your athletic history, and then just a bit more about you as an individual as well?
Sure. So maybe we'll work backwards. So I'm a father of 3. I have a 5.5-year-old, a 3.5-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old. So times are busy. So I'm a husband and I'm a father, and that is, as far as my perspective on life, my philosophy on life, the things that I spend a lot of time thinking about, that has shifted much over the years to who I am as a father and the life that I provide for my children and the example that I provide for my children. And there's not a lot that I think or do that doesn't take my kids into account these days. But tracing that backwards, when I originally started out, I was a 2-sport athlete. So I was in Team Canada's national program as a junior for rugby, and played rugby in Europe for a few seasons. I kickboxed professionally, primarily in Asia, and I did that for about a year, lived in Thailand for a significant period of time. And this was... that time of my life was more, I didn't know what I wanted to do for post-secondary education. And I didn't want to be one of those people who just goes and starts school and then gets a BA and doesn't really know what they're going to do with it and just ends up spending an extra 2 to 4 years at school, going towards doing the thing that they really wanted to do. And I thought, well, I know that I love to compete. I know that I have some opportunities to compete and see some cool places and travel. And of course, I didn't have the things and the responsibilities that hold me down now as a older adult that I did when I was younger. So it was easy for me to just leave, come back, leave, come back, go play a sport, come back. And at some point, you got to realize playing rugby and kickboxing are not going to make you a significant amount of money. And they're not going to give you a ton of longevity and probably aren't the best thing to do for a profession unless you're being paid a serious amount of money to do those things, which I wasn't at the time. So that's when I decided, okay, well, I need to go back to school. I need to start a path towards something. So physiotherapy was an easy thing to move into because of the nature of what my personal interests were. And even though that didn't work out, I ended up going back to school for business. I got my master's in business about 5 or 6 years after my first stint in post-secondary school, which I did to supplement what I was doing for my entrepreneurship. I majored in entrepreneurship and management. That was the core focus of my MBA. And so now I do a lot more. I do a lot more of the business side than I do of actively coaching and getting my hands dirty as far as that goes. But I use a lot of my time virtually to give free content that I find valuable to as many people as are interested in listening to it. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more of an idea of who I am and where I came from and what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. And so curious just to kind of explore the MBA, had you already, were you running the one facility at that point in time?
Yeah. So I was already, I think I was on my third gym at that point, and just hitting a bit of a brick wall and feeling like I need some actual daily education that's moving towards a specific goal, as well as where I'm being held accountable, both financially, actually having to put up money for some version of education, as well as having professors and peers who I had to interact with in a way where it kept me on the ball, because it's not difficult to have an informal education that's highly valuable, especially these days. I don't think anyone has to go to university to be properly educated. I mean, it's arguably going to do the opposite for you in a lot of circumstances, depending on where you're going and what you want to do. But I just found myself floundering in things that I already knew, and I just needed to challenge myself with more structure. But yeah, I was already well into the gym business then, and just wanted to be better at the entrepreneurship side and wanted to be better at the business and building the business, because going from someone who's enthusiastic about the thing you're doing to someone who's actually successful in, moving the business along in a more professional sense, those are not the same hat. And being good at one certainly does not make you good at the other. It probably makes you worse at the other right off the hop. So I went to business school while being an entrepreneur just to try and up my game there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely appreciate the continual learning element behind how you've progressed your businesses. And I think that that's one thing that I definitely very much respect about the way that you've built out programs as well as training for clients as well through the years. And I think that that's a really interesting challenge is how do you actually implement all of these learnings in such a complex industry with people who are trying to transform their bodies. Let's dive into that a little bit. So applying the actual research and the studies that you're reading on a regular basis, how do you divulge that knowledge in a way in your business that can be tangible and actually impact people's lives?
Well, I would say there's two things that I do right now as far as the research side. Number one is Research that I read traditionally, which I've been doing for a long time, is primarily for me. And I act as the filter. So I research things that I'm interested in the places where I'm interested, whether it's, sleep and stress management, nutrition, exercise, lifestyle, all those different factors that I know play a role in your core health at the end of the day. I'm interested and enthusiastic about those things. And I'm an enthusiast first. Like, I don't see myself as a fitness professional. I'm a fitness enthusiast who is enthusiastic enough that I want to share the things I learn with other people. So when it comes to the ground level research and things that I read day to day, it's really for me first. I look at them, I find interest in them, I test them out, I apply them. And when I find things work well for me, I just assume that there's a certain amount of the population who these things will work well for, as well as myself. So that's usually where I take that stuff. Things are a little bit different these days just because the speed of information that's coming out, and the avenues where that information is coming from, all things, health, our immune systems, fighting disease, all of these sorts of things have become much hotter topics with what's happened the past year and a half with COVID-19, not just because the disease itself is everywhere. You can't go a day without thinking about your own mortality because of what you see in the news and in the media and on social media. But it's also exposed the fragility of a human being who hasn't put themselves in a position to be resilient, because this is not new. The idea that someone who is metabolically unhealthy, a person who is overweight or obese, that person being more susceptible to dying from a disease is not new information. Every single major killer in North America and worldwide has been shown to be exponentially more dangerous to people who are unhealthy, particularly with their metabolic health. That's, cancer, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, things like Alzheimer's, which, some clinicians in that space are calling type 3 diabetes because of the connection between metabolic health and brain health as we age. So this is not new, the connection between your metabolic health and susceptibility to disease, but now it's in everyone's face. So I'm trying to take the opportunity to highlight how people can better take care of themselves when facing this particular disease, which is the hot topic right now, because eventually it will subside, or we'll find a way to deal with it and the world will move on, hopefully. But all of these other major killers are still going to be here, and people need to understand, when we get this thing under control, there's still all of these other things that people deal with day to day that are driven by lifestyle decisions that you can prevent right now. You can't completely control your fate. Nobody's going to live forever, but you can certainly extend the quality and the quantity of life you have just by making very simple fundamental changes to your health. And now I think there's an opportunity right now to send that message in a way that it can impact people who it perhaps wouldn't have before all this stuff started to happen.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess kind of threading the two subject matters together, health and the current, what's going on with COVID, as well as your business and entrepreneurial journey. Mind kind of breaking down for us what sort of shit show it's been for you over the last 18 months or so?
Yeah, well, it's been rough. Starting with the fact that businesses like mine have been, in my opinion, I mean, it's debatable, but in my opinion, unfairly targeted in a lot of ways. It's crazy to me that somebody can go buy lottery tickets, somebody can go buy alcohol, somebody can go buy cigarettes. Those places never closed. And some people would argue, well, there's people in those spaces who have addictions and you can't just block somebody from their addiction, which I agree with, but there's curbside pickup. You can buy lottery tickets online, but places where people go to get healthy and fit were immediately shut down and were shown to be completely expendable. While retail stores were open, while people could go just spend money on whatever they wanted as far as going and buy non-essential products. You couldn't go to the gym and exercise. And people say, at the time people would say, well, you can just work out in your basement or in your garage or go outside and go for a run. And that's true for people who are already fit and healthy and will go do those things and don't need support and don't need a community and don't need that extra push and don't need the accountability. But the people who are the most sick, the people who are the most vulnerable, the people who are the most metabolically unhealthy, they require spaces to go to motivate them, to hold them accountable to their health. So I think businesses like mine were unfairly targeted, and they're the spaces where, like, we need these spaces now more than ever. They're statistically proven to be just as safe, if not more safe, than all the other places, all the other business establishments that are allowed to be kept open. And they're part of the solution, not part of the problem. So while you can go to a fast food place, and spend $100 on fast food for you and your family, people can't go to a gym and exercise. So that was the first, big hit that we took. And another part of that problem was the intermittent way in which we were opening and closing and opening and closing. So you could be open for a little bit, then you'd be closed for 4 to 6 weeks, and open for a couple weeks, and then shut back down for 4 to 6 weeks. And what you're doing when you start to create that pattern is you habituate people out of a routine that was very difficult for them to create in the first place. So it's not easy for someone to step into a gym for the first time. It takes people years. It takes people decades. Most people never even get the courage to do it. So when someone finally gets the courage to step into the door of a gym, and then they can actually make it a routine, and then they learn that it's not that scary, and they can accomplish these things, and they belong there, and they should be there, and they start to see some progress, and then you close the door on them. And then you open it for a week, then you close the door. Eventually that person's just going to go, well, I'm just not going back until this whole thing's over with, because it's become a hassle for me to do it. So you habituate them out of the gym. You habituate them putting money towards the things that they value. And then when a year and a half, 2 years goes by, and that person's gained back every single pound that they lost, they've regressed in every single way. They're drinking more, they're eating more, all of these things that we've allowed to happen based off of how we've handled this whole situation. Now that person's in worse shape than they were before the gym closed. And now they're embarrassed to come back, and they're in a worse position than they were in the first place. So now the business is in a position where the people who are the most difficult to get on board with what you're trying to do and help them, you've now given them every reason and every incentive to not come back to the gym. And now it's like they're starting all over again. So the whole gym landscape is different. The market has shrunk drastically. I predict there will be massive bankruptcy for all of these small businesses, all of these personal service small businesses. And the ones that are going to suffer most are the ones that are most critical to people's health, which is the thing that we're saying that we care about right now. So there's also these elements of frustration that have nothing to do with the business. It's also like, we can't say that we care about health out of one side of our mouths, but give people the complete opposite incentive of pushing them to take care of their health, which is what we've done. Shut people inside, don't let them exercise, leave them with their own, leave them with their own addictions, leave them with idle hands to sit around, to watch TV, to fill their time with food and alcohol and whatever else is out there that they can get into. When we're saying that this is all about trying to protect people, but that message does not align with the actions environment that we've created over the last year and a half. So there's a lot of frustration, and it's the business landscape has drastically changed over the past little while.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely appreciate the context there, Tommy. And the message there, I think, is really important for people to hear, because fitness has been deemed a non-essential service, which is the most upside down thing that I think could have come out of this whole pandemic. Fitness is literally the thing that will allow for you to get healthy. And the capacity and space provided for people to do that is so pertinent. And the question that really is looming is like, how do we fix it? But when you have government regulators coming in continually, as you said, stopping your business, you don't have that alignment to actually dive into a really tangible solution, because you're always having to swerve and be agile, but without really something to step on in that sidestep. So it's really an important message, I think, for people to understand the importance of fitness, and the message that you're constantly putting out on your social media to provide people with options and actual information about what they can do tangibly to take action towards their health and fitness. So what do you think are really the next steps or the next evolution of fitness, given the context, given the fact that the industry itself is actually shrinking, given the fact that we do have a lot of people sitting at home who have taken up bad habits rather than good habits? Like, how do we actually go about solving that problem?
I honestly don't know that there's an easy answer to that, because, you know, another part of the issue is who's going to want to enter this business? Like, who's going to want to be a leader in this space when it seems so fragile and shaky? It's already a place where you really have to be passionate about what you're doing to be involved, because you're not getting rich in fitness. You're not getting rich being a personal trainer. You're not getting rich owning a fitness business. You know, of course, there's the Pelotons of the world and companies like that are the absolute unicorns. But in general, if this is something you're going to do, you have to do it because you love it. And I think that we've not only habituated individuals out of being in places like gyms and taking their fitness seriously, but we've also habituated young people from wanting to be a part of that environment as well. So there's, you know, I think the industry altogether is running out of runway, and we see these labor shortages everywhere. Like, most businesses are having a very difficult time employing their people. And there's certainly that in this industry, but I'm more concerned about not having future leaders, not having people, because there needs to be young people right now who are stepping into the business for the first time as personal trainers, as strength coaches, you know, opening up their first gym. It's usually someone who's seen a lot of success as a personal trainer or strength coach, builds their book, has lots of interest, decides to open up their own place. We're not going to see those kids doing that in a year, 3 years, 5 years, because they've been pushed into other directions where, you know, perhaps they're not going to add as much value to their community as they would have if they were given this opportunity. So I'm worried that there just won't be the places and spaces and people who really need to take the lead in this industry. Now, of course, you have the rise of online fitness. You have the rise of technologies, integrated technologies like the Pelotons, where you take a piece of equipment and you sync it with valuable metrics and a little bit of a community that you can see through a screen. But to be honest, again, those sorts of technologies and those avenues are great for really fit people. Like, a really fit, dedicated person will get on that bike every day and sweat for 30 to 60 minutes and do it religiously. The person who's 150 pounds overweight and doesn't even know where to begin, the Peloton bike is going to be the thigh master. It's going to be the ab master. It's going to be the old stationary bike that's sitting in that person's basement collecting dust. It's not going to be any different. And people who need the most amount of help need to form relationships. They need to form relationships with the people who are guiding them. They need to form relationships with the people who are around them, because those relationships and that strong in-person community is what keeps people coming back. Because if you go and you start changing your diet and you start exercising, you're not going to be a different human being physically in 30 days. It's going to take a long time. Like most things, the reward that's worth getting takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication before you actually get that return on your efforts. So people need a lot more to anchor them to their difficult behaviors, their difficult challenges every day, to persist through them in order to see the reward. So for many people, that is the friends they meet, that is the staff that they form a relationship, the person who's reaching out to them saying, hey, I haven't seen you in a couple of days, I'm going tonight at this time, are you going to come with me, and pushing people to show up. Not having that is going to be tragic, and I don't think that's going to be replaced by technologies and virtual connected equipment that people are so high on right now. I think a certain percentage of people will thrive with those sorts of tools, but they're the type of people who would have built a gym in their garage and worked out every single day under any circumstance because it's already a value for them. It's already a priority for them. It's already something that they're well beyond the stage of, can I do it? They're at the stage of, this is my life. This is a core value for me. I do this every single day. And that's, let's be honest, that's 1% of the population, probably less than that. So when we have a population in North America where 70 to 80% of people are overweight or obese, we don't need solutions that serve fit people anymore. Fit people will work out with rocks and logs out in the woods if they need to. They'll find a way. But the people who really need help, the people who are a burden to our health economy and our economy in general, the people who are getting sick and dying in the most, the most glaring demographics with something like COVID-19, these are people that aren't going to succeed because you gave them a bike to ride at home with a screen with some instructor, motivating them however they do. It's not the same thing. You can turn that screen off. You could just not get on the bike. And there's nobody there who's going to hold your hand and get you back to the place where you start to make progress and start to achieve things. So that might be a grim outlook, but I'm also enthusiastic that we will see a resurgence of community as people get more disconnected, because connection online is okay, but I think we can all admit that it's not the same as in-person, face-to-face connection. It's the reason why people can be so awful to each other online, is because you're not speaking to another person, you're speaking to a caricature that you're creating of the person online. And you would never speak to a person face-to-face the way people talk to each other online when they get into these battles, because it's not the same thing. It's not the same connection. It's not the same emotional connection. So like most things, when they swing too far in one direction, they have to come back the other way. I'm hopeful that we've become so shattered as far as communities and connectedness and in-person relationships. It's a fundamental human need that I think people will gravitate back towards. And I just hope that fitness and recreation in these sorts of spaces still exist when people want to come back to those sorts of communities.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think that I really want to riff on community for a minute here, because Tommy, I think one of the things that a lot of people haven't gotten to see, which I'm kind of in a unique position where I've actually seen your transition from one fitness facility to another and the growth and development there. But one of your superpowers has been building communities, and that's building communities across all of the different niches that were in the gym, whether it be that high level athlete or whether it be the person who's stepping into the door for the very first time, who's never ever lifted a weight in their entire lives. They are submersed into this community where everyone's supporting them and encouraging them and high-fiving them and giving them hugs, sweaty hugs at the end of a hard workout. I think that that's been such an important thing that you've built in your business. But I also think that that's important business concept in the way that you communicate the core values of the business. Literally says, welcome to the family on the door. Like, those things are not by accident. And I really want to dive into how you've built community through business over the years.
Yeah, so it's all well and good to have things on the door that say welcome to the family and try and build that into the visual culture. But to be honest, it's number one, just yourself as a leader trying to be a good person. And that's, how you conduct yourself in the relationships you try and foster inside of the gym, being able to admit where you're wrong and try and right things when you know you're not doing a good job, if that's, you know, with an interaction with an employee or an interaction with a member, whatever it might be. And it's ultimately who you hire, right? Because for what I do, the employees are the product, right? It's not the equipment, it's not the space. People can get those things anywhere. There couldn't be a bigger commodity than steel, rubber, and space. These are not hard things to come by, what you find inside of a gym. What's hard to come by is personalities who are loving, caring, motivated, and are truly invested in the success of the people that they interact with every day. So it's always been a goal of mine that I never hire people based upon their technical skills. I only hire people based upon their enthusiasm, their personality, their ability to communicate, what I can see in them of what they're going to bring to the table in interactions with other people. Because I don't care how brilliant you are in this business, if you're not someone people crave being around every single day, you aren't worth anything in this space. The person who is the most lovable, the person that everyone wants to be around as often as possible, is the best coach. Because if people will show up for you, to see you, to talk to you, to interact with you, you can be the worst technical coach in the world, but you're the coach who's getting them to show up over and over again. And that's the only thing that matters. So if there's anything I've done to foster community, it's only been in how I hire people. Because every single coach I've ever had who's been outstanding, 10 out of 10, may have been a 2 to 3 out of 10 as far as technical knowledge and experience in the world of coaching before they came in. But in the interview, I could tell that they were someone who I would want to be around more. I wanted to see them again. I wanted to learn more about this person. I was impressed by their ability to communicate, by their enthusiasm, by the person that I could see inside of them in our face-to-face. That is the person I want on the job. And if you fill your business with those types of people, you fill your gym with those types of people. And when you fill your gym with those types of people, they foster those connections with each other. They take care of each other. So that's really the only thing that I intentionally did that I think mattered, was I hired based off of enthusiasm, passion, love for your own fitness, as well as the genuine motivation to help other people grasp that and make it a value for them. That's the most important thing. And if you hire people who truly possess those abilities, success is inevitable. It's all about the people. It has nothing to do with any of the other things that people think business has to do with, at least in my experience. And what I assume is probably the same for most service industries. The person is the product. You have to have amazing people, and an amazing person is a caring person who other people want to be around as often as possible. If you have that, I think success is the only option for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really well said. And I'd love to explore just a little bit further, how you've been able to roll with the punches over the last 18 months, because I think being a gym owner, running a fitness center has to have been one of the most challenging businesses to stay in business over the last 18 months. So I guess any specific lessons or insights you could share with the audience in regards to how you approach like triaging your business, or how you approach to, moving forward?
Yeah, well, not to be cheesy in turning your problems or profits mantra around on you, but this is the reality. I can dwell on it, or I can get over it and just do the best I can to try and get through this thing and make the most of it. And my attitude right off the start was, there's going to be opportunities here. Someone's going to survive this thing. Some businesses are going to come out on the other end and potentially just be stronger for it. There's lots of opportunities here. Where are those? So whether that was, starting my equipment company, my fitness equipment company during that time, pivoting to virtual as best we could, starting a free group for local Londoners that has 1,500 people on it, where we just posted free stuff every single day, just to try and keep people attached to their fitness in some way. Those are all things done just to, think about people that we're trying to help, because it is a cliche when people say, if you're struggling, just help other people. And when you help other people, you'll find that you're not really struggling that much anymore, whether that's struggling emotionally or struggling financially or whatever it is that you're dealing with. If you turn that around and say, well, how can I stop worrying about me and how can I start helping other people? That can only move in a positive direction. So that's what we tried to do here. It wasn't, oh, poor us, this situation we're in. Yeah, of course, there's those moments, and you can't turn your back on the reality of what is happening from a business perspective. But we have people that we're here to serve. We have people that we're responsible for. We have people who count on us. So what can we do to take care of them under this situation? Right? From outdoor workouts to free virtual stuff, just to putting out as much content as we can in the free group every single day that anybody can join and be a part of to try and take care of themselves. I found, speaking just for myself personally, putting my energy into thinking more about how I could help other people and less about how I could feel sorry for my situation. I just moved beyond it. It's just, this is a thing that happened. You're not the only person who's suffering from this right now. Sitting here and thinking about it is not going to make your life any better. Just accept it, move on. And what can you do to start helping other people right now? And no matter what happens, no matter where things go, no matter how bad things get, if I can say, I just kept trying to do the right thing and help other people and be a resource and continue to do that, then it doesn't matter what happens, everything is going to work out, right? Because as people, what is the point of being here if it's not to help other people? At the end of the day, no matter what your avenue is, no matter what industry you're in, if you're not here to serve other people, what is the point of being here? So thinking about how to be of service from a personal level and, as a business collectively, I think that's where our focus went, and it served us.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that, Tommy. And I think that that's a fantastic place to kind of end off here. Now, where can people find you or follow along on your journey?
Instagram is probably the best place, which is odd because a friend of mine reached out to me 5 years ago and is like, you need to be on Instagram. It'll be great for you. It'll be great for your business. You should be out there putting stuff. I was like, I'm never going on Instagram. I have no business being on a social network where people just share pictures of each other and comment on them. A few years later, there I am. And now I found that it's the space where people are the least volatile. So Instagram at TC Fitness Mentor, all together, TC Fitness Mentor. That's where you can find me. And that's where I post stuff that I think is the most valuable for people. And it's also where I post links to content that I put out there, both free and paid. I have a link tree on there. So if you click the link in my bio, you can find all of my books, all of my free courses. Speaking of which, also, if you go to tommycaldwell.net, I have 2 free courses on there that anybody can do to try and help take care of their health right now. And also, speaking of serving others, in October, we're launching through Hybrid Fitness, which anyone can be a part of, is called the Return to Action Group. And this is for people who need a little bit of push and support to start taking back control of their health that they've lost over the pandemic. We're going to be doing free workouts, free nutritional guidance, free support for everyone in that group. And that group exists right now. So if you just look up Return to Action on Facebook, you'll see it there. And those are probably the places that people should look.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Tommy, and really do want to encourage everyone at home to follow along with you on your Instagram journey, because I've had a lot of fun following you so far and really appreciate the resources you share.
Great. I appreciate the support.
Awesome, Tommy. Well, definitely appreciate you coming on to another episode of the Problems or Profits podcast. Make sure you guys check out Tommy's website as well as Tommy's books. Highly recommend, and make sure you give Tommy a follow and support his cause.